let's talk about the TCU Horned Frogs, and
Let's do it.
let's do that so we don't have to continue to just hear and bitch about shit that's just not gonna. It's just not gonna get better.
Yeah, amen. Right.
Speaking of did get better, TCU had a nice little bounce back season, and everything seems to be pointed more in an upward trajectory. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but going into 2024, it wasn't like rudderless, but it felt like there was a lot up in the air, a lot of question marks as far as kind of just what the hell is going on exactly. Because you had the national championship game run out of nowhere, and then 2023 was obviously going to be destined to be a little bit of a letdown. But then had a nice little season last year. Am I correct in believing that TCU's kind of got this thing pointed upwards?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that your assertion or your not rudderless thing is that far off. I think what we saw at TCU was a severe lack of leadership. The culture was bad in the locker room in 2023. You lost we didn't come out of nowhere. We came out of Max Duggan's, dog in his rib cage. That's basically where we came from. But when you lose a Max who's not just a generational college football quarterback talent, but a generational leader and a Tim Tebow-esque almost, right?
Absolutely.
Like that kind of guy. Plus,
Iowa native.
Yeah, Iowa native. But he got out, so it was good for him. But you get a Max, a Quentin Johnson, a Darius Davis, a D. I mean, there was just so many guys on that team that were high level players, but like special humans in the locker room too. So you expected a drop off, and Sonny tried to rebuild through the portal because that's kind of what was in vogue. Like that's what people were doing. You lose, I think it was 7 guys to the draft and like 18 seniors or something. You go in the portal. It didn't work. And I think he learned from that because TCU signed 29 or 31 high school recruits in the class of, I don't know if you call them 24 or 25 anymore. I can't keep up. They're all on campus. Every single high schooler minus one was an early enrollee. So I don't know what they are now. But I think he learned his lesson from that. We saw Josh Hoover missed spring last year, which a lot of people have forgotten about. But he went into fall as the clear starter if he was healthy, and he stayed healthy for an entire season, and he looked the part. He threw for 4,000 yards despite having a running game that I think you or I would have been about the same success rate behind that offensive line. Savion Williams became Deebo Samuel for TCU because that was literally the only way they could run the football. All things considered, I think it was a successful season, but it's not one that I look at and go, oh, TCU's back, because it was a fairly soft 9 wins, and I'm still not going to get excited about winning the New Mexico Bowl against whatever Louisiana Tech or Monroe. I don't even remember which one it was. That's not something to diminish, but it's not something that you're going to hang your hat on, even though the trophy is really objectively cool. So I think you come into 2025 with a lot of pressure. I think there's a lot of pressure on Sonny Dykes. I think there's a lot of pressure on the staff. It's the first time both coordinators have come back for consecutive seasons. These are all big deals.
Right.
So they recruited well. They recruited their own players well. They only lost a couple of guys to the portal, and only. I think you could argue that none of them were massive losses, or not necessarily guys that you are going to cry over. So, if the offensive line is better than last year, which is almost impossible for it not to be, especially when it comes to run blocking, this is a team that comes in with a little bit of confidence, some expectations, and with a leader who, there's a new AD at TCU as well, who is not been shy about, putting people's feet to the fire. He has expectations, and he knows football drives the bus. And if TCU doesn't win, he won't be afraid to have some accountability in those offices. And I think Sonny Dykes knows that and appreciates it and takes it, and knows that he has to go out and be in the Big 12 title conversation into November and into close to the end of November if he wants to have a chance to keep doing what he calls his dream job.
Yeah. The one guy you mentioned there was Josh Hoover, who I thought, obviously he was missed spring, so you get a little bit of a slow start, but I think towards the end of the season, he seemed like he showed that he's the guy going forward for the next couple of years anyways. And there was the rumor that he got a big offer from Tennessee.
He did.
Rocco got there too. Like, it sounded like they were just fishing for the Big 12 for quarterbacks. Yep.
Well, where else would you go? I mean, it's a pretty good quarterback conference. It's pretty solid.
It honestly is. I mean, the top half anyways
Yeah.
have really good solid play callers.
Yeah.
But so, is your faith like we're good, Josh Hoover's our dude, or is there still kind of any trepidation there?
I would say unequivocally, Josh Hoover's TCU's dude. Like, no question in my mind. I still don't know how to characterize him when it comes to his place among the elites or close to elites, right?
Yeah.
I look at what he can do in game, and he's a guy that when things go right, he's exceptional. When things start to go wrong, he's still really good. When things fall apart, he still hasn't quite figured out how to be a gamer in that sense, right? Like if you look back to the UCF game, which feels like a lifetime ago, but that was when things really that was when we started to like wait, like, oh shoot, TCU's in big trouble. There's Bauer. He wanted to say hi. But he like there was a lot that went wrong, and very little of it was his fault, but he could not drive TCU down the field when they needed a score, right? And he had a couple of opportunities to do so. Like he needs to start making winning plays when the pressure's on. I think he's got one fourth quarter comeback win in his career. I might be wrong on that, but I remember the first one happened this past season. And you want to see him, in what will be year 3, be able to do that, to put the team on his back and will them to victory like we've seen with Max. Like, I mean, you look at like a Brock Purdy and like those kind of guys, right? He's
dudes.
only dudes. Yeah, you want him to be a dude, right? He's
yeah.
only a redshirt sophomore. This will be his first. He just
I thought he was pretty young still. Yeah.
This is his first spring going into knowing he's the starter. So I think he's developmentally where you would hope he would be, and he has a chance to be super elite. He's got to use his legs a little bit more, and he's got to get a running game to support him. But I mean, damn, the kid's got a cannon. He can make all the throws, and he developed such incredible chemistry with a guy like Jack Besh and JP Richardson that if he can do that with Eric McAllister and Manjack that came in from Houston, and I really, really love Jordan Dwyer who came from Idaho. Like, he's got a chance to continue, but, we're going to have to see how all of that develops over the course of fall camp and into the season.
So you're kind of within the conference, would you put Josh Hoover kind of in the just a slight like tier below, kind of the Noah Fafita, Sam Levitt, Barack Obek, that kind of group?
I mean, to me, I think Sam Levitt and Sawyer Robertson come in as kind of the guys that should be the 2 best quarterbacks in this league on day one, right? Like that could change for sure. Sawyer, I think, is a little bit undervalued nationally. I've been really impressed with what he can do. He has some flaws, but he's a damn good quarterback.
He had a nice game against us last year.
He had a nice game against us too. It pissed me off.
Yeah, I know. I piss me off anytime Baylor does good.
Right. I know, but it
sucks.
but I like Sawyer. Like, I'm like, dude, this is a guy when I'm not playing against him, I love. He's a gamer. Like,
I was just gonna say that same thing. It's like when you watch him, I see a lot of like what we saw with like Brock Purdy, where it's just dude just goes out and just does stuff, makes plays.
Makes big plays. Well, and the Baylor game's a perfect example of what I was saying. Like Sawyer ripped on 4th and 8, I think a slant route. I can't remember exactly, but a slant that was just beautiful. And like, we want Josh to make those plays. I think he will, but we want Josh to make those plays. But him and I just totally forgot his name. And you just Sam Levitt, like those two to me are the best. I think Josh is right in that next pack. Right, it's with Rocco, with Avery Johnson. I think Fafita's got a lot to prove this year because he fell off.
Fafita was one. I think he's kind of stuck in between the two for me. Like I think I want to see him what he looks like without Ted McMillan.
Last year. He was so bad.
Yeah, he wasn't
last
great.
Year. I think he kind of falls to that next. And then there's a lot of guys who you think could be really good and certainly have the talents and the bona fides. So I kind of like if I were to I'd tier them probably more than rank them, and I feel like Josh is like strongly in tier 2 with those guys. And with a chance, I would not be shocked whatsoever if he finishes the best quarterback in the league. I don't expect it, but it wouldn't surprise me because I mean, he threw for 4,000 yards last year. Well, that's no running game.
Well, and that's what we were kind of talking about is there's at least probably 6 guys at least in the league that you could look at and be like, it would not shock me if we came out of the bag. It wouldn't shock me if we thought like that's the best quarterback in the league when they came out.
And Josh maybe arguably plays in the most quarterback friendly offense of any of those guys. Like he's going to have the most opportunity to put up the biggest numbers. It's just can he do that in games that his team is winning and in moments where people are paying attention. Like that's really going to be the key. He's a great kid. He's a great leader. He's really like come into his own. You've seen him become more vocal over the last year. I certainly want him to be great, not just as a TCU person, but as somebody who's gotten to talk to him so much over the last couple of years. So he does all the right things. I think he's built to be successful. But he's going to have a more developed offense around him, especially in the backfield, than he did a year ago.
Sure. Let's flip over to the other side of the ball, the defense. Where's what's the vibe check look like on TC's defense right now?
Yes. So this secondary has a chance, if it's healthy, to be one of the elite, not just in the conference, but potentially in college football. You brought a lot of guys back. There's a lot of continuity. There's continuity in the DC. Avalos is such a better fit for what TCU wants to do than Joe Gillespie was. God bless him, this nice human being, but just they needed something a little bit more aggressive, a little dirtier, a little grittier, and Andy Avalos is certainly that. I thought they made some really smart moves in the portal, but they brought a lot of young guys back that they really believe in, that they've developed now over the course of the season. I have some concerns about the defensive line. If there's an area that I don't know that there is as much experience, it's that, because you're going to be counting on a couple of guys. Oh, God, now I'm going to have to say names here. Michael Mbue Oboke, MIO. We call him MIO. And Paul Oyewale. That one I've got down pat.
That's a good one, yeah.
Yeah, it's so fun to say.
Stuck to landing on that one.
Yeah, those two guys missed all of last season and most of the spring. If they're healthy, there's a lot of excitement. If they're not healthy, there's a lot of concern about can you get to the quarterback. I like the linebacking core. You bring back Marcus and Devin Deal. Again, I think it was Marcus. I can't remember which one. I think Marcus or Devin. No, Devin was out most of the spring with it looked like an arm injury or something. So, again, if those guys are healthy, you've got some potential. You lose a Johnny Hodges, who was just a guy who knew where to be all of the times. But the young guys in the linebacking rotation, there's probably 5 or 6 you feel pretty good about that can play in that, those 2-3 positions. I think you've got enough depth at the stud position to be impactful. Bud Clark coming back was massive. Jamal Johnson flirted with the portal. He decided to come back. If he plays like we expect him to, like he's capable of, not like he kind of fell off at the end of the season, he's a really good run support and coverage safety. And then if you get Channing Canada and, Avery Helm on the outside at corner, I think there's a lot of potential to have a really, really good group, and there's depth. And that'll be the biggest thing, because no one's getting through this thing completely unscathed, right? So
right.
I'm excited. I think there'll be more. Yeah, I mean, it takes a couple of years for Avalos to really do what he wants to do, and I think he's finally got the personnel, and he's had the opportunity to develop guys within his system. So my expectations are high, but I don't think this will be the best defense in the conference, but I think it can be a really strong secondary and more than good enough to allow for TCU's offense to have some success.
Yeah, as far as the needing to have depth, because you might cook through some guys, they're preaching to the choir on that one.
We've lived that more than once.
that was just a nightmare last year. I think we were down to our 12th or 13th linebacker. I don't know. It was unreal, which is kind of funny because
we still can't talk about sprinkler heads in TCU, because going into, I think, the 2015 season, James McFarland broke a foot on a sprinkler head and missed all that year. And it just started the worst string of bad injury luck that TCU has had, and as far back as I can remember.
Yeah, well, that's what's got me terrified about this roster cut down. It's like because we needed everybody we could find last year.
Seriously, yeah.
And which is kind of maybe going to work out okay for us, because now we've got, I don't know, a dozen linebackers that started games. So that's
experience is a good thing, right?
I guess. I don't know. We'll see.